So what up, YouTube? It's your boy, the Latin assassin himself, Big Lou, tapping back in with what it do with Big Lou and FZR2. Baby, baby. Bye. So check it out. Thumbnail is I used two different thumbnail. While I was trying to figure out which thumbnail. I kept hitting an image, and when it would pop up a different image. So what I had to do was I had to screenshot it as a little smaller screenshot and crop it and try to blow it up, and it kind of look a little blurry. So I'm not sure which thumbnail I'm going to use. One thumbnail says the mastermind of the Rico, or Rico mastermind. That's the one I really wanted to use. If it doesn't come out, I use the other one saying, Mike, I wanted you away. Because for some reason when I would hit the Rico mastermind, it would be that picture, and then 2 seconds later it would change to the other thumbnail that says, Mike, I want you away. So the two individuals in that thumbnail is none other than former Colombo Capo regime Michael Francis, and America's formerly known as America's mayor, and the guy that's known for the commission case of 1985, who was the head USA um, that ran the Central District of New York. Which, if anybody knows about that, the Southern District of New York, which is Manhattan, and I believe Queens is in there too, I believe. But then they have an Eastern District too, which is Brooklyn, I think, and all that. So, anyways, this is a real prestige office, right? They're well known for making many cases and just hard nosed federal prosecutions there. Um, and he was not the one that actually worked on the case in the courtroom, but he was their boss out of that office. He was the head guy out of that office, Southern District of New York, and he was the ones, according to uh, history and what other uh, attorneys said, like Michael, how do you say his name, Churkos or something like that, uh, said that he was uh, that he got that Joe Bonanno book, read the book, and it pointed him in the direction to how to utilize the RICO Act to the full extent of of their prosecution, because up until then the RICO was on the books already for the 15 years since 1970 by Robert Blakely, who was a professor, right? And he wrote this law, the RICO law. RICO stands for Racketeering Influence Corrupt Organization Act, and it was just designed to link the bosses, even though usually the bosses are insulated and away from crimes that are going on. It enabled the prosecution to link them to their soldiers and their associates and their captains and predicates that fall, different predicates of the RICO Act, which included murder, which prior to that murder wasn't included, but anything, racketeering, murder, extortion, bribery, gambling, sports betting, all that stuff, right? Loan sharking, shylocking, all that was underneath that. So when you in the case of the commission, they wrapped up the heads of all the families, the main guy of the families, except for the Bonanos. They originally arrested him, but then I guess they dropped the charges because he wasn't on it. He wasn't sitting. That family wasn't on the commission at that time. So it was the Colombos, Gambinos, Bonanos, or excuse me, the Colombos, Gambinos, Lucchese's, and Genovese. And Rusty Rastelli was the man with the Bonanos. And I think he was locked up at the time, anyways. So what happened was they ended up taking down the four families, the heads of the four families, Gambinos being the boss and the underboss, but both ended up dying. One died of cancer and the other one was murdered, which was Paul Castellano, who was the boss, and murdered in 85, December 16th by supposedly John Gotti, according to Sammy the Bull. And Neil Della Croce died exactly 2 weeks earlier on December 2nd, 1985, from cancer, some type of cancer he had, okay? Colombo family, they took down the boss and the acting boss, who was the legit underboss, Jerry Lang. They took out one of his soldier, Ralph Scopo, who was their point man in the concrete business. He was the one that handled all the concrete pretty much. They got the Lucchese. They took out the whole administration, the boss, the underboss, and the consigliere, which was Christy Tick was the uh, consigliere, and Tom Mick Santoro was the underboss, and Anthony Tony Ducks Corallo was the boss. They were the only family that the whole administration got taken out. And then for the Bonanos, though, they did take down uh, uh, Angelo Bruno, or not Angelo Bruno, what was his name? Bruno Indelicato, for being one of the trigger guys on the Galante murder, that he left his prints on the car handle, on the getaway car. And then also they took down the Bonanos consigliere Stevie Beef Canoni, which I think he ended up dying before he ended up going to court. He ended up having a heart attack or something. Bruno goes away. Bruno gets out and then goes down for another murder in, I think, 2005 or six. And then he gets out again a few months back, about a year ago or so, and he's out again. And supposedly he's on the administration. But out of all those guys that had positions in the administration, is the only one that got out. Because let me say, these guys got 100 years. Persico got 39 years on one case and 100 on the commission case. So this is the kind of time that Tony Salerno, in fact, Tony Ducks Corallo got. And I didn't say Fat Tony Salerno. He went down for the Genovese. Supposedly he was just a figurehead, not the boss, but he failed as the boss. He was powerful nonetheless, a hell of an earner, made tons of money. I think I want to say that he was an underboss at the time, or consigliere, or he could have been considered a street boss, because they run a street boss thing with the administration, and then they have a street boss. It's kind of like Detroit in a sense. So anyways, these guys have an interview, and it's just ironic how, this guy was he was in the head, leading the way on this RICO case, on the mob, and he can't stand the mob. He hates the mob. But if you really look into Rudy Giuliani's history, his dad was, I don't know if his dad was a made guy, but he was definitely in the streets and around things, right? These guys were tight with the mob cop Eppolito's uncle and cousin, right? They were around them. He had Rudy had family that worked in bars, and ran certain rackets, and then his mother was a Devanza, and that Lee Devanza, who was on Mob Wives with Drea, the husband that was locked up. He's locked up again, I think. That's his cousin. That's his, I think, second cousin. Maybe his first. I don't know if it's his first cousin, but I think it's his second cousin. I think it's his first cousin's son. That's what I think. And so he don't like any of that. He don't like that stuff. This and that. But when it boils down to it, look what this dude did. Look what he did. I mean, after 9/11, they called him America's mayor. You had at that time Hillary Clinton, Schumer were the senators. You had I can't think of his name. The one the AOC beat, but I can't. Him. You had what's the other guy's name? The Jewish guy, little short, chubby guy. He lost a lot of weight. Jerry something. They were all there, for support of 9/11. He did help clean up New York City. He did help shut down a lot of their businesses, such as like the Times Square stuff, peep shows, and all that. I think he was in there eliminating those type of businesses from downtown or from Manhattan. But look what ends up happening. He's acting crazy. He's out there speaking conspiracy theories. He has he has a little press conference in front of like a Home Depot type place, where they do gardening and stuff. I think it was, and it's hot, and he's got dye running down his head, man, just looking silly, right? And what makes him more silly is the way he's talking. He's talking about they stole it, and he's talking about a mother and a daughter from Georgia, and their election workers. It wasn't their first year working the election, it wasn't their second year, and this guy's out there slandering the shit out of them. These people are getting death threats and all that, and so they sue for a defamation of character, and this dodo bird is gonna say that, that was a hard drive they just passed, and it was, she said it was Tic Tacs. That was hard drives they were passing to change, insert it and change it in these machines. I guess that's what they were trying to say, right? And they're awarded a whole bunch of money, and he don't got money like that. I mean, he got money, but he don't have it like that. Like, they sued him. They got like 120 million from him, which I think even with everything he owns and all that, it only comes up to like maybe $30 million. With properties. You know what I'm saying? He gets a pension, and then he started playing games with the court. You know what I mean? So I mean, how do you feel sorry for a guy that just plays games and he swears that he's a guy about the law? But it's only like most of these clowns. They're only about the law when it pertains to other people. But then when it comes to them, it's fake news. It's bogus. It's not true. Not this. Not that. You know what I mean? And maybe in some cases that could be what it is, but not in his case. This guy was publicly calling him all kinds of names. Like I said, they were getting death threats. I mean, is that cool? Is that cool to be? That's the thing with this party that's in power right now. This jackass will get up there and do his little dog whistling to have the certain people on board that are just waiting to be sicked on somebody to attack them. You know what I mean? And I'm saying it in the literal sense, and I'm saying it also in the intimidation sense. In other words, you know, a lot of people are starting to know what this guy is about and what he'll do. And if he's complaining about it or they're complaining about it, anything, whatever it is, it's because that's what they're doing. But they want to project it on the other way around and use gaslight, which I don't really like using that word, gaslighting. I guess it's basically saying something that's not happening and try to act like you're hallucinating or you're full of it up here or something. But it's clearly in our face, and it's in their face daily, the way that certain things are said, and certain things are said because these people feel like they got the green light because of who's in the White House to talk the way they talk, right? So anyways, that's where this guy is at. He's all over the place with the courts. He's lying to the courts, and he got his bar license suspended already from the state of New York, I believe New Jersey as well, Washington D.C. Um, you know what I mean? It's crazy. I wonder how he feels that they're trying, after all these years, him being considered the proponent for Rico putting the charges down. He's considered the man for that, but yet here he is fighting the same kind of charges that he was a hero supposedly for being doing that with the Rico by reading a book. You know what I mean? So yeah, it's just ironic. And then when you hear these guys talking, Michael Francis, and because Michael Francis plays the victim role, not for so much him, but the victim role for Trump and other Republicans, and he ain't got no. When he's trying to, when he tries to back Trump and say things about Trump, he has no pocket to piss in. In other words, what he's talking about is bogus. It's not the real deal. You know what I'm saying? It's quite honestly, it's the opposite. You know what I mean? And you don't got to take my word for it. You can just go watch stuff and you can go see stuff. You know what I mean? All day long. But this guy wants you to. That's why I say it's cult like, because no matter what he says or does or tries to do or tries to say, they're with them 100%. And that's not, that ain't how it goes. I guarantee you, Democrats did not 100% agree with everything Biden did, nor Obama, nor Clinton, right? So that's the weird part about it. It's a cult, right? All this Republican Party in the Senate and the House, they immediately fell right in line because some threats got put out there that if you don't go with the flow, you're going to be basically expendable, and we'll have you primered out. So I mean, it's likely they're going to get primered out anyways because they won't even stand up for their constituents. You know what I'm saying? They're not even. I've not heard one Republican stand forward and say, "Hey," to the Trump organization. I mean, administration. Hey, we got the purse. Money's been appropriated by us, and that's our job, not yours. Step off. You know what I mean? They won't dare do that. They won't dare because they want to get primaried, right? Which here they're getting paid $150,000 a year, that's pretty good. It's not a lot, but it's good. And on top of that, you get to go fly in different places go check out other countries, however they're doing or whatever their conflict might be. So you get all these trips, and great health care and all that stuff. Of course they're not going to want to get kicked out. But some of these guys, like Senator Cassidy, he just got revoted in, and for 6 more years. And Trump's not gonna be here for 6 years. I mean, he was gonna be here for 6 years, but he won't be in the White House, the president, for 6 years. You know what I mean? So, yeah, it's something else to see this kind of crap. A senator isn't. There's 2 senators per state, which I believe that system is janky too. Because you're telling me that the very smallest state with their 2 senators has as much say as the 2 senators in California. Like, how does that even compute? Here you got all these people over here in California, and they pay I forgot exactly the number, but a bunch of taxes, into the federal government to help out red states. That's the funny part of too. The red states are the poorest states there are, with the poorest people that there is in this country, and they're mostly white people. And like they say, Latinos and blacks aren't monoliths. They don't just always vote Democrat. Same thing with, somebody needs to get that message out to these people, these poor people in Mississippi and Alabama, that, you guys need to wake up and stop voting for, or you guys are not voting, could be too, but you got to stop voting for red and go, and what do you got to lose? I mean, they don't even want you guys having sidewalks and lunch in school and free lunch and all that type of stuff. And they swear they're a party family, and they won't even. They're trying to remove things from the budget. That budget they try to, they put forward a framework. They're trying to eliminate a lot of things from the Veterans Affairs. You know what I'm saying? I don't see how. These people went to war, and they went to war and lost a lot of. They have survivor's guilt. They lost best friends and family members that were in their, in their platoon, whatever. Guys that sacrificed and died, guys and women that sacrificed by giving up a pound of flesh. In other words, a leg, an arm, whatever, right? There's a lot of soldiers that happened to. And it's not just the United States, it's Canada, Britain, France, because we're all together under NATO. They mess with one, they mess with all. So that's what I don't understand too about this dodo bird in the White House. He wants to line up his ideology with Russia and say the heck with all our allies that have been with us for decades, since World War II. France been with us since the Revolutionary War, the very first war when we tried to break. We did. We broke off from the King of England. France were the ones that were there, our very first allies. They're the ones that sent us the guns and all that, ammunition and all that. But it's just crazy. It's a crazy time, and this guy right here, both these dodo birds are right there with this carnival clown in the White House. So I don't know, but you guys want to check that video out with them, all you gotta do is Google or search YouTube for Michael France's Giuliani interview. Um, yeah, it's just a big, in my opinion, disgraceful that somebody in such a powerful position of a United States attorney for the head of that office, and then to become the mayor, and then make a president run, and then you're gonna act like that, talk like that about civilians that didn't do nothing because you guys are pushing a certain narrative. It's sick. It's sick stuff, right? Yeah, it is what it is. So with that being said, I'm gonna go ahead and tap on that. Tap on out on this one. Let me know what y'all think in the comment section. And with that being said, Big Lou tapping out, baby.